Hello, everybody. Welcome back to New York Talk. This is now the Scouting Report. We're going to look ahead to our next opponents, and this time it's Wrexham coming to town. We have Matt from the Racecourse Ramble joining us to give us the latest. How are things going, Matt?
Well, apart from being wet and miserable in Wrexham today, we're all right. We can't complain. I don't know if it's the same where you are, but it's terrible here.
Absolutely. There's a reason the curtains are closed. It's because weather's
garbage.
Same for
me. Same here. No sunshine out there.
Let's start with the question you always, I assume you always get asked as being a Wrexham supporter. How have things been over the last few years since the takeover? Are you just enjoying the ride? Is everybody still very happy where things are at the minute?
I think people are probably ecstatic given the fact that I think if we just take this season as a little snapshot, I don't think anybody was expecting us realistically to be where we are. That's not to say that we're super confident that we'll stay there and this is how the season will end, but we're ecstatic with where we are. Listen, it's everything that you've heard before. We went through some hard times, as some people do and don't know, and we survived, and then we came out the other side of COVID, really, in a dream scenario, aren't we? Let's be honest. We get all the attention when the owners want it. Obviously, it's quieting down now. The general noise is quieting down, hasn't it? So we get all the attention when they want it, and they go and do something daft, and when they're celebrating each other's birthdays and doing daft things. But also we get the sort of the financial muscle that's come off the back of the documentary, which obviously raises Wrexham's profile. So yeah, we're in cloud. We're in cloud cuckoo land, and I don't begrudge anybody who goes through it. Birmingham will be in a similar situation now, aren't they? We're where Birmingham are where we've been, hated. The green-eyed monster is out because they've got seemingly unlimited finances, doesn't it? So, but they're a different beast altogether. So, it's everything you think it probably is.
Fair enough. Let's just run through last season, because back-to-back promotions, we've been lucky enough to do that before, from up to the Championship before. A really special couple of years for the club to finally get out of the conference and then get out of League One first. I'm asking, they're perfect seasons, aren't they? Those kind of years.
It's ironic, isn't it? You wait 15 years and then the two buses come at once. Now, granted, in those 15 years, we did get close once or twice. Once especially, losing in a playoff final. But yeah, Phil Parkinson assembled a really good squad. As we know, that isn't always the answer, is it? Just the money and the players alone isn't the answer. He's fostered some really good team spirit, and that stood us in good stead when we then got promoted. We had all the tools mentally and then obviously financially to help us, and he's managed to make it work. Granted, you could argue obviously Stockport had the better season because they won the league. But if you'd have asked any Wrexham fan genuinely at the start of that season, what are you hoping for? They would have just said promotion. They weren't care. We didn't care about whether we won the league or not. I know that sounds a bit weird, but we just wanted to go up. So yeah, two really good years that showed good consistency. The main driver for that is the home form. So this is the caveat, and where you'll be licking your lips this weekend, is that since Phil Parkinson's been in charge, the away form has been really inconsistent. At home, we're imperious. We very rarely lose. There's 6 games or something daft since Phil's been in charge. But away from home, we can be patchy. We can go to Peterborough, win 2-0, and not really give them many chances, even though they had a lot of possession. They weren't creating a lot. But then we can lose a soft game. So this is the bit that we've been looking for them to get right, and hopefully on the weekend we will.
Just give me the vibe on Phil Parkinson. I think when he came in non-league, it was a great appointment, and certainly when you're in League Two, it's a great appointment. This is the kind of level where this may be his level. Obviously, the start you've had has been fantastic, but how do you feel about Phil Parkinson? I imagine it's very well thought of, bearing in mind the promotions, but how do you see it maybe going forward?
Yeah, so I think a a lot was written, especially by sort of Bolton, Sunderland, Bradford, fans of all the clubs that he'd been at and spent time at. Because it's easy for fans of clubs that he's never been at to talk, but the reality is, who's seen how he works and what he does, and so lots of people talked. We can see elements of what they mean. You can see it from the style of football, for instance. Phil Parkinson doesn't. If we can compare what we did in the National League, Notts County played beautiful football, but couldn't get it done to win the league that season. We were a bit more. It was a bit more gritty, but it stood us in better stead. So other fans have complained about his style of football. So I get that. I can see all the things that fans complained about. We see it for periods, but the difference is what Phil Parkinson had never had was one of the biggest budgets in the league. So all of a sudden, that's a different person, isn't it? When you've got all the toys that you could ever want, you're a different animal. I think the documentary has done him a real favor, especially with Wrexham fans, because there's clips and scenes where he's in the dressing room giving people. Am I allowed to swear? Where he's bollocking people, basically, yeah. And when you listen to him talking, he's moaning about all the things that we're moaning about as fans in the stand that haven't happened in the game. It's not a case of him sort of being oblivious to the fact that we've not created enough chances or we've not defended well enough. He knows, he is tuned in. He's not an idiot, So that's the thing I think that really resonates with fans. And the fact, he does little things like, he's moved to the area. You can go down to the village where he lives. And, he might occasionally be having a drink with somebody, and he'll have half an hour or an hour out or whatever. He's really ingrained himself in the community. So I take on board what people have said. He has been promoted out of this league, you have to remember. So he's had 5 promotions in his career, I think it is, and he has been promoted out of this league. So he does know what it takes. And I think that will always be there for him until if he takes Wrexham up and does well in the Championship, it'll silence a little bit of that, perhaps. But that's not to say that a Sunderland or a Bolton fan or whoever who didn't like him, they're never going to be silenced, though, are they? It's just the general people that pick up on those general comments, I think. So yeah, that's what I really like Phil Parkinson. I think he's doing a really good job. But like all managers, they have little spells, don't they, where they frustrate you. Football isn't what you want it to be, or you don't sign a player or whatever. But no, I think the general consensus is that people are really, really happy. Build him a statue. We've got murals of him on walls already. After back-to-back promotions. So yeah, fingers crossed he'll stay for a little bit. But I think we have to be realistic. There will be a ceiling somewhere. I think that's obviously what you're sort of inferring. But where that is, don't know yet. Well, time will tell that one, won't it?
It's not there yet, which is the most important thing, really.
Well, remember, it's early in the season. Everybody's only played 10 games. So that's not to say we couldn't lose 30 games, is it? So let's, football is a fickle old girl, isn't she? Yeah. She wants to punch you in the face. She'll punch you in the face. So let's see. Let's not. The vast majority of Wrexham fans, certainly the diehard fans who've been there a long time, are not getting cocky about where we are or what's going on. I can tell you that for sure, because obviously that doesn't always come across on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the pre-season expectations. From our point of view, when we looked at Wrexham and same with Stockport, you're kind of saying there's no way they're going to go down. That's never going to be a concern. The question was, how high can Wrexham go? Is it going to be a stabilisation year, or is it going to be a push onto the playoffs? And it's 10 games in, like I say, it's early days, and the league position is excellent. Are you confident that you can kind of maintain that? Is it maybe going to reduce to a playoff push? Where do you see things in this early stage?
I guess if we did some predictions on the podcast the sort of week or two before the season started, so I guess that's the place to start that conversation. And we didn't predict every single space like some people do. We just predicted who's going to go up, who's going to go down, and where do we think we'll finish type of thing. I actually predicted Stockport to finish above Wrexham in the playoffs. I thought Wrexham would just miss out, and I was hoping that we could fight for the playoffs for as long as possible. That was my. So that's a vague answer, isn't it? But that gives you an idea. You know, we're talking about probably being what 7th to 10th, 11th, depending how the season plays out. So that's where I was hoping we would finish. I agreed with you. We were hopeful that we were not going to be relegation fodder, and that's turned out not to be the case. There's thankfully there's worse teams than Wrexham for by a long shot, and yourselves. But you know what I mean. It looks like there's a couple of teams already that, if they're not careful, might get cut apart, might they? If they don't if they don't fix it. So I thought that's where we would finish. But the club didn't think that. So the club were ambitious in terms of what they were doing off the field. And the owners were certainly not thinking about that. When we see interviews with them, they're not talking like just consolidation at all. They're talking about, no, we think we're going to assemble a squad that can get us a chance of promotion. So can we keep it up? God, touch wood, I hope so. What I would say is this, without being disrespectful to anybody. Birmingham, we had 20 good minutes at Birmingham, and then they played us off the park, which they'll do to many teams.
They do it to us.
Right? So, you know, they're a different animal, aren't they? Forget them. Whether you love them or hate them, they're in a different pond to everybody else, and we just have to accept that. But what we've seen so far, so that's the caveat, right? So far, is that nobody else has really come and blown us away as such. So we think we can be in the mix there at the moment. So I'm a little bit more ambitious than I was at the start of the season, because I think I'm quite realistic with my expectations and respectful. Because I think if you come into this league and just go, we're going to go up again, and the people who go, we're going to go back to back to back, I think you probably need to just reassess and think about, you know, there's some battle-hardened teams in this league who've been in it for a long time. So sorry, that was a long-winded answer. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's so in and around the playoffs would be ideal, realistic, I think, as we sit here now. But let's see how it plays out.
Absolutely. I've got to ask about Ollie Rathbone. I was signed him from us in the summer. Very popular player. How's he getting on?
Well, so supposedly he arrived to us with a niggle or a knock of some description. We're super private now in everything that we do, right? It's almost like a Premiership club. They don't talk to anybody. Everything's hush hush, right? So supposedly he arrived with a bit of a niggle, but got forced into a few early games. We actually just played him in areas that he could just run around, really. So we were playing him off a front man and stuff to start with in games where we just needed to get him fit. Sheffield United away in the Cup, for instance, early on when we lost. He played off a front man and as an attacking midfielder a couple of times. He's only just now getting back into the side following injury. We haven't seen anything from him at all yet, is what I would say. I saw him last in the Bristol Street Motors. He played in the Cup game against Wolves, and he was okay for an hour. Then he started to tire, so he's getting his fitness back. So we've not seen anything to sort of get excited about yet. But the caveat to that is that that was the same with some of the other midfielders we've bought. So I think there's a combination of him not being fit yet, and perhaps having to learn our system. So, like, I don't know exactly how he played for you. It was described to me he's probably more of a box-to-box type player than we had him running around off a front man, which wouldn't really suit him probably, but it was just for needs must. So, yeah, he's not set the world alight, but that's common with Phil Parkinson. We had the same with a guy we had called Andy Cannon, who came to us via Stockport and Hull in the Championship. And he was the same for a third of the season. We were all scratching our heads going, don't get it. And then all of a sudden he was, he flourished. So we're hoping that we're going to get that bit of Ollie Rathbone now, the flourishing bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. Look, he's a good lad. He's a really good player. Let's finish on some predictions. It's been a long time since we played 2007 last time Rotherham Wrexham met, so a long while. How is it going to play out? How is it going to play out, and what do you think the score is going to be?
If it was at home, I think I could say how it would play out probably better than it being away, just with me referring back to our away form. So I suspect you'll have most of the ball. We will do our usual thing where we'll just be ruthlessly efficient when we do counter and from set pieces, because that's kind of what we're set up for. We seem to play better that way. Ironically, at the moment, we seem to get better results playing that way. It's as if we're built to be strong from the back. You see, so I obviously I'm sure you'll forgive me for trying to predict a win, regardless of what you think. So I'm gonna say Wrexham win it by a goal. I suspect you'll score. So I'm going to say Wrexham 2-1. But you might have a lot of the ball. You might think you're comfortable, but we are really strong, especially from sort of set pieces, corners, free kicks. We don't have the long throw anymore like we used to when we were in the National League. Yeah, that's my hope. But it'll be a grinding, sort of gritty away performance from Wrexham, where you'll be thinking, if we do win, you'll be thinking, I don't know how we've lost that. We had a lot of the, on paper, your stats will look good. You'll go, we've had a lot of the ball, but that's the way we've ground out our results so far.
Fair enough. It doesn't sound like it's gonna be a classic, which happens when Steve Evans' teams plays anybody, to be honest with you. So yeah.
Yeah, you've not hit your form yet either, have you? That's should we say that? So I could see this being it might be a bit messy and a bit, But we'll see. Let's see how it plays out. I'll be there, so I'm looking forward to a trip to see you. So hopefully it'll be a good day for us.
I hope not.
Obviously, I respect that. That's no problem. I get that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Matt. Make sure everybody checks out Racecourse Ramble. I will put the links in the show notes for everybody to check out. Make sure if you are watching now, make sure you like the show and subscribe. And we will see you all next time. And as always, up the Millers.